They call it the Canadian dream. Go to school, get a good job, save your money, buy a home. For decades, this was the unwritten contract. It was the promise that built the middle class and defined our identity. But somewhere along the line, without a formal announcement, that contract was shredded. Today, in 2026, we are waking up to a new, brutal reality. They told you the dream was about owning a home. But in Canada, that dream has been slipping away for years. Now, we are living in a reality where you work 40, 50, even 60 hours a week, not to build your own future, but to pay for someone else's retirement. Welcome to Generation Rent. A generation that works longer hours than their parents, is more educated than their parents, yet owns absolutely nothing. We are witnessing the death of social mobility in Canada. We are watching the birth of a new class system. On one side, the landed gentry, those who bought assets before the ladder was pulled up. On the other side, the serfs, you. The people paying 50, 60, sometimes 70% of your income just to have a roof over your head. In cities like Toronto and Vancouver, rent isn't just an expense anymore. It is a punishment. Basement apartments that cost more than a doctor's salary in the 90s. You are told, just work harder. But how can you save for a down payment when your landlord takes the majority of your paycheck on the first of every month? This is not about saving tips. That is an insult to your intelligence. This is an investigation into the mathematics of the trap. We are going to expose the corporate landlords profiting from your desperation. We will uncover the Renoviction industrial complex. And we will answer the terrifying question, is it even mathematically possible for you to escape? Let's look at the numbers. Because the mathematics of survival have fundamentally broken. In cities like Toronto or Vancouver, a standard one-bedroom apartment often sits in the range of roughly $2,200 to $2,600 a month. And in premium downtown areas, that number can easily pierce the $3,000 mark. But let's be conservative. Let's say you find a place for $2,500. To afford that comfortably, following the standard 30% rule, you need to earn a salary of $100,000 a year. Think about that. A six-figure salary used to be a symbol of wealth. Today, in Canada's major cities, it is merely the baseline to rent a decent shoebox. This isn't just inflation, this is something darker. Economists call it Neo-Feudalism. In the Middle Ages, you worked the land for the Lord and gave him a portion of your harvest. Today, you work in an office or a warehouse and give the landlord a portion of your paycheck. The mechanism is different. The outcome is exactly the same. You are working to pay off someone else's asset. You are buying their retirement while sacrificing your own. And this is where the trap truly snaps shut. Let's run the calculation for a typical young professional. Let's call him Michael. Michael earns a respectable $75,000 a year. After taxes and deductions in Ontario, his monthly take-home pay is roughly $4,600. His rent for a modest apartment takes $2,500 right off the top. He is left with $2,100. Now, subtract basics. Groceries, transportation, internet, phone, and student loan payments. Be realistic. That costs at least $1,500. Michael is left with $600 a month in savings. That is if he never eats out, never travels, and never buys new clothes. To buy an average condo, he needs a down payment of roughly $100,000. At saving $600 a month, it will take Michael 166 months to save that down payment. That is nearly 14 years. By the time Michael saves enough in 2040, the price of that condo will have moved again. He is chasing a horizon that moves faster than he can run. That is the mathematical trap. But the numbers are only half the story. The other half is the humiliation of the process itself. Finding an apartment in 2026 is not a transaction. It is a gladiator match. It is the Hunger Games. You show up to an open house for a basement unit. You expect to see maybe 2 or 3 other people. Instead, you see a line around the block. 50 people fighting for one damp, windowless room. And then the bidding war begins. The landlord looks at the crowd and smiles. He says, "The listed price is $2,500, but I have an offer for $2,700. Who can beat it? desperate people start shouting numbers. Someone offers 6 months of rent upfront in cash. Another offers 12 months. Think about that. You need to have $30,000 in cash just to secure a rental lease. This is illegal in many places. And when enforcement can't keep up with the market, the law becomes paper thin. Cash is king. If you have a credit score of 700, not good enough. You need 800. You need references. You need bank statements. You need to surrender your privacy entirely just for the privilege of paying someone else's mortgage. But once you are in, the nightmare doesn't end. It shifts to fear. The fear of the letter sliding under your door. It's called Renoviction. It happens when a landlord wants to kick you out to double the rent for the next person. They claim they need to renovate. They paint the walls white, change a light bulb, and suddenly, an $1,800 unit becomes a $3,200 unit. For those in older buildings, the N12 form has been weaponized. Technically, an N12 is a notice for personal use, a landlord saying a family member needs to move in. In theory, tenants have the right to challenge this at a hearing, but in reality, the system is broken. Landlords know the landlord and tenant board is buried under a massive backlog. A hearing could take 8 months, maybe a year, so they use the N12 as a pressure tactic. They bet that you won't have the time, money, or mental energy to fight them. You are effectively coerced into leaving, and once you are gone, the family member never moves in. The unit is simply relisted for market rent, often double what you were paying. Is it illegal to evict in bad faith? Yes. And on paper, there are mechanisms meant to punish it. But when timelines stretch and the process becomes a marathon, your rights turn into an endurance test. One most working people simply can't afford to run. This leaves renters in a state of perpetual insecurity. Now, you might think, wait, if rents are so high, landlords must be getting rich. Wrong. Many of them are bleeding cash, and that makes them dangerous. See, many amateur investors bought condos in 2021 using variable rate mortgages. They calculated their profits based on 1.5% interest rates. Today, their mortgage payments have exploded. A landlord might collect $2,500 from you, but their mortgage payment to the bank is $4,000. They are losing $1,500 every single month. They are panicking. This is why they are so aggressive with evictions. This is why they don't fix the broken heater. This is why they try to squeeze every last penny out of you. They are not evil geniuses. They are drowning swimmers trying to climb on top of you to breathe. And in their panic, they are dragging the whole rental market down with them. Turn on the news, and you will hear one solution repeated like a religious mantra. Supply, supply, supply. Politicians tell you we just need to build a mountain of homes and prices will come down. Don't get me wrong, we need more homes. But supply is only part of the equation. The real question is, who are we building for, and who ends up owning it? In some new condo developments, a huge share of units are bought by investors, not families. We are building safety deposit boxes in the sky. If you build 1 million homes and they are all bought by investors to be rented back to you at market rate, the price doesn't fall. The concentration of ownership rises. There is another uncomfortable truth that politicians are terrified to whisper, but we must say it clearly. The math of population growth versus construction has been out of balance. The peak shock came in 2023, when Canada's population jumped by over 1 million in a single year. 2024 still brought major growth, and 2025 has started to slow as policies tighten, but the damage from that demand surge doesn't disappear overnight. Now, ask the brutal question: how many housing units did we build during those high-growth years? Hundreds of thousands, not millions. Do the math. When you add people faster than you add doors, you don't need a PhD to predict the result. Demand overwhelms supply, and prices can only go one way: up. We are inviting the world to share the Canadian dream, only to trap both newcomers and locals in a Canadian nightmare of bunk beds and overcrowding. The true cost of the rental trap cannot be measured in dollars. It is measured in human life. When you pay 60% of your income to a landlord, You live in a state of permanent fight or flight. You don't take risks. You don't start businesses. You don't innovate. You just survive. We are seeing a birth strike. Young Canadians are delaying marriage. They are deciding not to have children, not because they don't want them, but because they cannot afford the bedroom for them. How can you raise a family when you can be renovated out of your home with 60 days' notice? We are hollowing out the demographics of an entire nation. A country that cannot house its young is a country that has no future. And look forward. Imagine 2040. What happens when Generation Rent retires? They have no home equity. They have no savings because rent ate it all. Their pension is meager. We are walking blindly toward a geriatric poverty crisis, the likes of which Canada has never seen. The golden years will become the homeless years. So, what is the endgame? If you pay half your income on rent, you cannot save. If you cannot save, you never accumulate a down payment. If you have no down payment, you never buy. You are trapped in the cycle of renting forever. You are building someone else's wealth while your own net worth stays at zero. This creates a permanent class divide. The haves who bought before 2020, and the have-nots who missed the boat. Canada is no longer a land of opportunity. It is a land of inheritance. If your parents don't own a home, chances are neither will you. The rental trap is closing in. Knowing the trap exists is the first step to survival. But this system is fragile. When renters run out of money, when the serfs can no longer pay the lords, the whole house of cards begins to shake. Because here is the secret the banks don't want you to know. The landlords are drowning too. They borrowed too much cheap money, and now that the rates are up, they are desperate. Some are turning to dark places to keep afloat. Places unregulated by the government. Places where the interest rates are criminal and the tactics are ruthless. In our next video, we are going to expose the people profiting from this chaos, the shadow banks lurking in the dark corners of the Canadian banking system. If you think the rental trap is scary, wait until you see who is lending the money. Thanks for watching The Northern Ledger. Don't forget to subscribe. You need to know the truth.